All right, it's 11:02, so we're going to get started. It is today's Wednesday, and this is part of the SCORE webinar series, SCORE Monmouth webinar series. My name's Claire. I'm one of the volunteers at SCORE Monmouth, and with us we have also Nicole Papaioannou. Did I say that right? Who is also a volunteer.
You got it.
Excellent. Who is also a volunteer with SCORE Monmouth, but she's going to be talking today or presenting about high key hiring. I think, as we all know, in today's current climate, it's really difficult to attract new employees. So Nicole's going to give us some pointers on how we may be able to help attract new employees for our companies. A couple of housekeeping things. So just so you know, we do not see you guys, you see us, but we don't see you. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function. Try not to use the chat function because we don't really monitor that as much. So if you just try to use the Q&A, we can manage that better and make sure we get to all of your questions. This webinar will be available on our YouTube channel within a couple of days after the webinar. We'll post it up there. So if there's anything you missed or anything you want to go back to see, feel free to do that. The YouTube channel is I SCORE Monmouth as well. So just if you go on YouTube and check Monmouth SCORE, you'll find it. And I think that's it. I'm going to hand over to Nicole now. Just one other thing, just real quick, is we are having a couple of technical delays. I think there may be a web delay. So if you do get a slight silence or a slight pause, don't worry. It's just technicalities from an internet perspective.
Technology, can't live with it, can't live without it. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I'm going to talk about attracting new talent. And, I know this is a really important subject area right now. We're all trying to find the right fit for our organization so that we can continue to grow and scale and offer our customers great experiences. So without further ado, let's get right into it. While we're, just getting started, I would love to know what industry everybody is in and whether you're looking to hire. So you can go ahead and put that right in the chat box. So, did you know that there are currently over 8.1 million vacant job openings in the US as of March 2021? So if you are looking to fill a position, know that you are not alone in that search for talent. The historical average for vacant opening to employees available is close to 3. It's about 2.8, and right now it is just 1.4 and falling. And in certain industries like education and health services, professional services, there are actually more jobs open than people that would be available to fill them. So it is a talent-centered market right now, which is a little bit different than when everybody was panicking that they wouldn't be able to find work and were looking for employers, and employers sort of had the upper hand. But that doesn't mean that you can't find great talent. So this whole webinar is all about finding the right people, getting them to apply, and getting them to say, heck yes, I want to work for you. So we're going to talk about 3 areas or 3 steps that you can take to get those talented individuals on board with your team. So I know I told my husband the name of the webinar and he went, what the heck does high key mean? So being low key, right? You've heard I low key am trying to do X, Y, Z. It's being quiet, it's reserved, it's easygoing, it's letting the talent come to you, right? So low key hiring, it's really under the radar. You don't have to work that hard. High key hiring is the opposite. It's about creating a message that really sparkles, that is enthusiastic and excited, that stands out, and that lets the talent know that if they work with you, they'll be valued. And because we're in a talent-centric market right now, that is a really important aspect to getting people to sign on. So I've been working in the learning and development field, and I have been a hiring manager. And so I'm pulling from not only my experiences hiring people to work for me or to work for outsourced teams or pulling together teams for my clients, but also from the perspective of the person who often is developing the training for new hires and ongoing talent development. And so I've learned these 3 things that apply across the board, no matter what industry you're in. First is that unicorns don't exist. And I see so many times in job postings, we're looking for that unicorn, that magical person who checks every single box, even though the boxes have nothing to do with one another. And that I'd say that you're really limiting the people that will apply to your job by looking for those unicorns. So not to say you can't look for somebody who's really amazing, but unless you've got a bottomless pocket, you probably are not getting the number one foremost expert in the world who can do these very, very strange and unique things you need them to do. And that's okay. The second one is that honesty is the best policy. So employers need to be transparent. Employees are looking for honesty. And that's because you're not going to find the right fit if somebody doesn't know what they're actually walking into. And so as scary as it can be to be upfront about certain things that go on within your organization, you need to be prepared to be open about them. And then the third thing that I've learned is that people want to feel fulfilled, especially for the current generation. Engagement is really, really important. People don't stay where they don't feel that they are being well valued and well used. So to deal with these things and to get the right people in place, we're going to go with the 3 C's. The first one is copy. And so we're going to talk about what it takes to write, and I use the word write, a great job description. Today's day and age, you might not be physically writing copy. Maybe you're posting it on social media, you're leveraging video, not really sure, but it doesn't always have to be the old school posting, although it certainly may be. Conversation. So think about interviewing today as a two-way conversation rather than you scanning somebody to see if they meet your criteria, although that's still an important part of the process. Number 3 is going to be culture. You've got to sell people on what you have to offer, and 9 times out of 10, they care more about the culture and the environment and seeing that they can work and thrive there than they do about any of the other things. And so that's going to be a really important part of your hiring message. So if you're still with me, give me a yes in the chat so I know that you are on board. Okay, great. So let's dive right into copy. And again, like I said, this might not be a written job description anymore. So I want you guys to stop including everything in the kitchen sink. This is the number one issue I see when there are issues in the hiring process. It's that people are writing all of these tasks that people need to do, and they're not necessarily thinking about the job. And the other problem with this, aside from the fact that nobody really wants a laundry list if they're not doing laundry, is that there is gender discrimination sort of happening with these laundry lists. So HP did this big study, and they found that men would look at a job list, and if they felt they met 60% of the criteria, they would apply. Women, however, would self-select out of a role if they thought they didn't meet near 100% of the criteria. And the issue, aside from the fact that as women, we can recognize that maybe we should just go for the opportunity now. The other issue is that people don't really know what's priority versus what's just a nice to have, even when you put them on the nice to have list. And so just looking at that list of criteria can be very, very overwhelming. And so I really want you to think about what is essential or important to your organization and to doing this job well. So has anyone ever heard of SMART goals? Because that's the framework we are going to be using. So SMART stands for specific, which means, a single objective or task. Measurable, meaning that you can tell between now and, a few months or weeks from now, how far you've gotten to that success rate. That it's attainable, it's something that can realistically be done, that is doable for the person's education level, training, whatever. That it's relevant, that it actually has to do with the work they're doing and the needs of your organization, and that it's timely or time bound, meaning that it's something that will be used in the near future, and or that you will be marking it by a certain deadline. So if you can do all of these things, if you can get a goal that lists out all of these characteristics, then you'll have a very clear direction on who you need to hire, and the people reading your job description will understand what's expected of them without getting overwhelmed with all of these tasks like must know Microsoft Office, right? So let's take a look at what that might be. I would love for you to try, and I'll go back to that screen for a moment, but I would love for you to try to think about one person you might want to hire, right? I know not everybody here is potentially ready to hire somebody. Think about a person you might want to hire or a person you are aiming to hire, and think about one SMART goal you have for that person. Let's go with timely. Let's say within the next 3 months, what would you like that person to achieve? And I'm going to give everybody, let's say 2 minutes to try to write one SMART goal for that person in the chat. And while you all work on that, I'll just tell you, I'm currently looking for a virtual assistant for my work. And what was really important to me was that they could take I would say 2 to 3 hours of non-essential tasks, such as uploading things to YouTube, doing research for social media posts, and offset that for me within the next month or two, because I was spending way too much time on things that were not essential to my business. And so that's really important to me. And that would be a relevant task for that person. And anyone looking at the job ad would be able to say, oh yeah, I can help Nicole do that. To schedule 3-month batching for social media. I'm not the only one looking for a virtual assistant, apparently. So awesome. Yes, definitely. Anytime you can offload stuff that is not business critical or not essential to use that person's talent, it's a good idea. Set up a comprehensive mailing list of customers to be used to survey, coordinate recruitment events, etc. That's great, Sylvia. So what I think would happen if I were somebody looking to possibly, come into this role, I would know exactly what's expected of me. And I would say, hey, I've got all those skills, or hey, I sort of have those skills, but I have the right thinking patterns, and maybe I could be an asset to this team. So think about those. I would say if you have more than like 5 to 7 of these big goals, you're going to start scaring people away. It's going to tell them you have way too many hats for them to wear. So it's really important that you nail these down. So we're going to keep moving along. So the copy of the job description, whether, again, you decide to do this in like a TikTok, or you decide to do it in a YouTube video, or you write it and you post it somewhere like Indeed or LinkedIn, these are the 4 things that you really need to hit on. Why would anyone want to work for your organization? What is great about working for you? Are you a small business that's looking to make an impact in your community? Are you a startup that has aspirations of doing really amazing things, or has some really cool technology, or offers a lot of great learning opportunity, or has a really great work culture? Why would someone want to work for you? What do you do, and what's unique about your proposition? The second part, what performance goals will they have to meet? And we just talked about how to address those things. Who would excel in this role? I find this to be a more powerful statement than simply saying must meet 3 years to 5 years of experience, must have a high school degree. I think when you think about who would excel and what particular qualities and aptitudes they have, you're going to get more meaningful criteria, and people who look at the job and say, oh, I am this person, versus, oh, I don't have 5 years of experience. I say that also because I think of my own industry, and there are people in the learning field, let's say, who have worked 10 years in higher ed, and you might put out a job posting for a highly technical course that requires 3D animation and all this other stuff, and they say, hey, I've done tons of stuff for higher ed. But when you get them on board, you realize they don't know how to ask the right questions, or they don't thrive in a work environment where they aren't the subject matter expert. So if you think of who would excel in this role, instead of years of experience or specific education, you're more likely to find a good fit. The last one is what you can offer them. And so in this talent-centric environment, people are sort of opting out of job ads where they don't post salary ranges. And I know that's a little bit controversial, and I'm not saying to give the exact number you will give them, but if you can give them a range, then it saves both of you time, because it lets them know that you're going to be upfront and this is what you can offer, while also saying, hey, I need to make 12 times that, I'm not going to waste the interviewer's time. So it works out for everyone. But offering doesn't always have to be monetary, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. Great. So when you get this great job post, then you got to put it out somewhere, right? We think of the common places. Maybe you've got it on Monster. Maybe you have it on Indeed. Maybe you have it on LinkedIn. But there are some other great places. And the idea is that you have to focus on your target audience. Where are they going? What do they like to do? Are you thinking of, hiring someone who's like a college student or that Gen Z bracket from 16 to 23? They might be hanging out somewhere different than your millennials who are, up to their early 40s, or, the boomers, which I hate to kind of classify people into generations, but, they might be on Facebook, where they might be still really open to face-to-face networking. And so these are some of the places that you can try if you are in any of these categories of industry. And again, it's limited only by your creativity. If you know, like, hey, I recognize that, Facebook groups, I think Facebook groups for the community are great for small business that's localized. If I live in Ocean Township and we have Ocean Cares, and there is tons of great back and forth between neighbors there. And so if you're looking for someone, let's say a high school student, to work the cash register at your candy shop, that's a great place to go and look. All right. Now, the second part, once you've got that great potential hire interested because they've seen your fantastic job description, is to think about the interview. Now, in the past, I know when I was early in my career, the interviews were sort of one way, and the idea was that the employer was really grilling you, right? They were criticizing you. They wanted to know what your flaws might be. They wanted to know if you were right for the position. They wanted to know how you could help them. But now that it's a talent-centric market, and quite frankly, leadership styles have changed a bit too, well, now these conversations are two-way, and you should be ready and willing and able to participate in those two-way conversations. And so upping your interview game will require you to do these things. First, you want to think about those specific examples. So if you think back to the SMART goals we established, it should be really easy then to say, hey, what questions can I ask that will help me get specific examples of times when they have been able to help somebody achieve those goals or think strategically about those goals. Have them talk through their process. So many times people can list off things they've accomplished, but having them tell you how they do it, that's where you'll see if they really know what it takes. Being open and honest, we talked about that earlier, right? Be willing to say, hey, we have a really big workload, but we're willing to do X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, we can only offer X amount of dollars, but we can offer other things as well, or we're willing to negotiate. Being open and honest will make sure that you have somebody who is a good fit for your organization, even though maybe it feels like you should cover some things up. Honestly, all you get when you do that is people who leave. The first 3 months of the job are actually one of the highest quit rates, right? People get into work and they decide, oh, this is not a good fit, and they leave. And there's a high cost to that. So you want to be open and honest from the very start. And then we talked about being willing to discuss pay range. That doesn't mean negotiate salary on the spot. That just means you can tell them we're hiring bussers and they typically make $12 to $15 an hour depending on restaurant experience. Or we're hiring a virtual assistant and we have $30 to $40 per hour for the right person, right? And that's all you have to say. And then the final thing is to respect their time. And that means you are on time to the interview. You don't keep them for 6 hours, right? You keep them within the time frame that you have allotted and decided on ahead of time to the degree possible. You don't make them sit through excessive rounds of interviewing. So if you're hiring for a CEO for a global organization, 6 interviews with different departments might make sense. If you're hiring a entry-level worker, it does not make sense to put them through 6 rounds of interviews. They're going to be turned off and they're just going to go with someone who will hire them quicker and recognize their talent, right? They have the leverage right now because it's talent centric. And the other part, and I think it's funny that we have to say this because I think it's something we think of the younger generation doing, but don't ghost people, don't disappear on people. Even if all you can offer them is a form fill letter, do let people know when the position has been filled. Do let people know if you're not going to move forward with them, especially if you've brought them in for interviews. It really sours people to your organization when you ghost them. And while you might not think it's a big deal because you didn't think this person was right for the role, you should look at what people say on Glassdoor, right? So poor Glassdoor reviews, poor employer reviews can also make people not want to work for you. So it's just polite and it's best practice to communicate in some way, even if you can't send a personalized response to each person. So these are some of the questions I've come up with thinking about this goal for an imaginary digital marketing person, right? You want them to up your average open rate by 15%. And so you might say something like, tell me about a time you helped a customer improve their email marketing effectiveness. Or you might say something like, what steps do you take to produce effective email marketing campaigns? You might say something like, we have great conversion rates and we're excited about what could happen if we get more people to open our emails. What's one way you evaluate campaign effectiveness? And from those questions, you'll see if this person can help you meet your goal or not pretty easily. And the other thing you'll notice is that even though your company has poor open rates, you're staying positive, right? You're not like bashing the company. You're not bashing anyone who's in that role. These are the things that are appealing to somebody. They feel like they're going to bring value, that they're going to be asked to be thoughtful, and they're going to want to move forward with you. All right, so I would love if each of you could share your favorite question to ask during an interview. So go ahead and put that in the chat box. I'll just take a 1-minute pause to give you time to do that. Or what's the favorite question you've been asked if perhaps you haven't done the hiring before? That would also be wonderful. Great. Why are you seeking this position? That's a really common one. I think that usually gets the conversation started. In today's market, you might find that people are just honestly like, oh, I just need money. And so another really great question to ask building off of that might just be, why are you a good fit for this role? Tell me about a time when you went above and beyond to please a customer. That is a great question, Tom. Right? You get a very specific example and you get to see how they interact with customers. What do you like to do in your free time? That's also a great question. Personally, I've been asked, about what video games or movies I'm watching right now because I'm in the learning field. People want to know sort of what my vision is and my design aesthetic. Tell me about a situation where you really dropped the ball and how you dealt with it. I like that question. I think it's a tough one to answer, but people can give you a lot of insight into how they take feedback. So that's another great question, Val. So maybe if you are about to go into an interview, those are some more broad questions, right? Not specific to the goal that you could ask. Okay, so this is my list of avoids. The first one, not everyone will agree with, but I'm going to say you want to avoid gotcha questions, questions that are purposefully meant to trip up the interviewee. And basically it says to them, this is an environment where people are looking for you to fail and to be able to criticize you. So even if you think, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to see how they think on their feet, just remember that they are also interviewing you and their thought process is going to be, well, that wasn't very nice. You can still ask questions that are meaningful without looking for opportunities for people to fail. The other one, and this is really common, is leading the interviewee, especially when you get excited about a person. Try not to put the answer that you're looking for into the question. Avoid making snap judgments about cultural fit. I've actually had it recommended to me, and I think this is a great solution to avoiding this, that you sort of take a checklist of the things you want in a person and you write them down. I know early in my career, I was hiring for an instructional designer, and my colleague was doing it with me, and she said, ooh, she had a fish handshake. And that kind of colored the whole interview for her, even though the woman was very, very talented and clearly would have been a good fit for the team. So just remember that when you're making those snap judgments, you're often hiring for someone who's exactly like the people you have already. And in order to get out of that bias and to create a team that has a little more diversity and diversity of thought, that you should really stick to thinking about those performance goals, obviously looking for red flags that would show you that person isn't capable of meeting them. Nobody should be asking overly personal questions for legal reasons, but also just because it has nothing to do with how well they do the job. And then avoiding negativity. If you talk badly about the person who was in the role before them, or if you talk badly about your department, or if you say how the company is failing, there is a fine line between transparency and just negativity. And so you want to walk that balance. So these are some of the questions that some of them I've seen and some of them are clearly a little bit made up, but these sort of reflect the questions you don't want to ask. Again, that what's your greatest weakness is sort of controversial, but we found that people are sort of just prepared to answer it in the most generic ways, right? Oh, my weakness is that I'm a perfectionist. Like everybody kind of answers the same ways. And so I don't feel like you get a lot of value out of those questions that are sort of meant to trip people up. We really love puppies here. Don't you love puppies? Well, you already told this person they should love puppies. So even if they don't, they're not going to say no because they want the job, right? Don't you think you're overqualified? You've already made the judgment. They don't really have an opportunity to show that they genuinely want to do the job, even though on paper, it seems like they have a lot of experience. Don't ever ask, are you planning to take time off to have children? Unless you would like to possibly go to court. And then you wouldn't be the kind of person who quits after a month, right? We have a lot of that. I've been asked similar questions. And to me, that's like a huge, giant red flag that you don't want to work there. So if you can avoid those, you're doing great. All right, so now we're going to move into the fourth part. You've asked these really great things of people in your interviews, right? From the fantastic job posts that you put out. You've focused on performance goals. You kept things positive, and now you're going to attract this person and get them to sign on to your offer by leveraging the culture that you have. And resoundingly across industries, what studies by companies like Harvard Business Review that are publishing in Harvard Business Review, I should say, Deloitte, companies that are doing this work, they're finding that people care significantly less about the money than they do about a great work environment and some place that prioritizes workplace well-being. That doesn't mean that people don't want to get paid, but that means that people will take a job with a great culture over a job that pays slightly more but has a really cruddy culture. And so right now, we are experiencing what Gallup and Deloitte call the Great Resignation. People are leaving their jobs at rates never before seen. COVID has a lot to do with it. As of April this year, 4 million people quit their jobs. So even if you weren't looking for a vacancy to begin with, you might be experiencing this now. And what's really important to consider are why people are quitting, right? And so these are some of the things you want to think about as you put together your package for this person that you think would be wonderful. At the lower, I shouldn't say the lower levels, but at the entry level positions, at the, sort of the fast food jobs, things like that, people are leaving because they can't afford childcare and their kids are still not on normal schedules. We know that was a huge issue throughout the pandemic. And so if they can't afford childcare, they cannot afford to work for you at minimum wage. It's just something to think about. Better pay, right? It's a talent-centric market. Competitors who can pay more are going to pay more, and people are going to leave for those better rates, especially if you are not giving raises or promotions internally. Burnout and mental health issues were a huge reason for leaving. I can't say this enough, especially in the hotel and restaurant industries. This is a leading trend because I mean, I've heard horrible stories, unfortunately, but we have rude customers or people who don't want to deal with the new rules. And so your entry-level employees are left to sort of fight the customer service fight, and it's burning them out. But this happens across industries. Again, you can look in any of those publications, workplace, the Harvard Business Review, they're all talking about burnout right now. And fear of an unsafe workplace, that sort of factors in, and mindset shifts and valuing time. So this is a big one, right? If you value your employees' time and you can show that to them, that is a big win on your part. If you are willing to be flexible, all of those things can help you. So if you can't give them more money, right? I know that's not always possible, especially as a small business owner. You're probably not competing with Netflix for wages. But there are other things that you can do, and these are just a few, right? So most people, they're looking for opportunities where they're valued, where they're respected, where they have an opportunity for growth. And the more you can show them that those are the things you can offer, whether that's in your job description, whether that's in your interviewing, whether that's in your offer letter, whether it's just in your company's social media, whether you're getting your employees to post on Glassdoor about how much they love working for you, all of those things are going to be attractive to potential talent. Millennials in particular are looking for purpose and flexibility. I'm a millennial. I can say both of those things are appealing to me. 80% of millennials surveyed by Deloitte said they would be more motivated at work if they felt that their employer made a positive impact. So if you are a do-good type of organization, or if you're an organization that has charitable offerings, maybe you go and you do volunteer work, maybe you give days off for employees to do volunteer work. Those things are all really appealing, and they don't cost you, anything more in salary. A lack of engagement and, being used well, essentially, as well as obsolete management styles, those were big factors for choosing to leave. And so one, I would make sure to highlight that you have a great leadership. But two, if you find that your culture isn't really supporting those things, this is a good time to start auditing your internal culture and position yourself for those things. Then we've got the youngest folks in the workforce, the Gen Zers, and in a survey of about 12,000 of them, 91% of them said that the technology offered by their employer actually would have an influence on their decision to take on that job. So that could mean anything from, hey, we have a lot of fun with social media in this office, to, hey, there's opportunities to learn new technologies or industry standard technologies. In my industry, I found that, junior people like to work with me when they know they get to play with tools like Beyond, which is a semi-custom animation tool, because they know when they go on to do senior instructional design jobs that it's something they can speak to. And then 75% of Gen Zers expect to be learning from their peers on the job rather than online courses or college courses. And so you should be prepared to have education as part of your work culture. And both Gen Zers and millennials agree that no one really cares about silly ping pong tables or work perks like pizza parties. Really what they want, if we're thinking benefits packages, they want health insurance, they want 401ks, they want regular raises, they want learning and growth opportunities, the same as basically any generation wants. They want things that will put them ahead for the long term. If you can do loan payments, things like that, that's great. I know in small business, those really big monetary perks aren't always possible. But again, think about this list and think about what you could offer them, and make sure that is in all of your hiring messaging. Now, that said, I would love to see what one thing you think you could offer a potential employee right now that is not monetary would be. So go ahead and drop one in the chat for me. And again, I'm going to take a minute and let you all think about, what that might be. What would be that one thing you could offer them that is not salary or in addition to salary? For me, it's been, people are really receptive to mentoring, and people are really receptive. Actually, I published some online courses for people who are in sort of the entry level of my field. And I just give them to my employees for free, and they're really excited about that, which is kind of neat. So let's go to the chat. Free pickup and drop off at home. That's wonderful. Not everybody has transportation. And it's also just like a really cool time, I think, for people to socialize and get to know each other, right, on the little commute to work. Long-term financial planning. Gosh, would I have loved that when I was in my early 20s. Hybrid work schedule. Yes, flexibility is so attractive right now. If you can work offline, or I should say not offline, if you can work online, if you can work from anywhere, that's really, really spectacular. But obviously, if you have a retail shop, that maybe some people can help do online sales, e-commerce, but some people might have to be in the front of the store. Professional training and a positive culture. Yes, sell those things, Tom. You let every single person who's going to join your organization or who you want to join your organization know that those are there. So like I said, if you find that person and you think they're fantastic, you can think of ways to meet them that aren't necessarily monetary. Or you can think long-term and say, hey, we can give you X now, but maybe we can work out some, if they're, senior level, maybe we can work out some equity, or maybe we can work out something else. Or maybe, based on the results of this campaign, we might be able to provide you X percentage, right? So there's ways around it if you can't offer that Netflix, Amazon salary right now. Yes. Oh, Val, I really love that. A sincere thank you. Yes. So many times people feel underappreciated. They don't feel recognized for their work. And so an environment where they're told that they're appreciated and that they're recognized for their contributions, that is an excellent way to attract and keep people. And that's a great segue because it takes about a 20% higher salary to get an employee to leave. And so why I'm telling you this is not to suggest that you want to start offering your competition's employees 20% higher salaries, which actually could be a great way to attract people if you have it in your budget. But it's also to remember that your people won't leave unless somebody offers them a really, really big shiny package if they feel engaged and valued. And turnover is very costly. Retraining people is very costly. Hiring people is costly. Recruitment is costly. So if you can keep people engaged, that is going to keep you from feeling any hurt on your bottom line from losing folks. It's going to make it easier to keep folks. All right, so hopefully that helped. Remember, we're thinking about the three things, and here's your first option, right? First option is craft the laundry list. Look for the person who can do all the things and look for them in all the wrong places. Just keep posting randomly to Indeed. Just keep posting randomly to Upwork. Don't look in any special places. Don't look at employee referrals. Don't ask your network. Just look in all the wrong places. And then blame the lack of qualified talent. Say, oh, there's just no one who can do this work. And don't offer them anything, right? We can keep a really negative employee-centered model, employer-centered model, or we can do this, which I think is what we're all going to do. We're going to secure the star talent by staying talent-centered, performance-focused, right? We're always going to be thinking about those goals that we're hiring for and leveraging smart copy, conversation, and culture to get them in the door. So at this point, I think we have about 20 minutes left. And I am totally open to questions, or I know some of those slides had a lot of information. If there's anything you want me to go back to, that would be a great time to do it. And maybe Claire, I don't know if you want to join me for this part.
Yeah, I am. I'm right here, so I will join in for sure.
Yeah, so if you have questions, you can use the QA. It's like two little bubbles with a Q&A at the bottom. I think most of us are familiar with Zoom now, but that might be unique to webinars. So you can go ahead and put in your question there. And why I say that instead of the chat is just because it'll help me make sure I didn't miss anyone's question. The chat just like streams up. Sure, I can go back to that last slide. We're talking about this one. You're welcome, Tom. So if nobody has questions, then maybe a good opportunity would just be to start talking about who we're looking to hire. I don't know that I said it enough, but networking is just really important. For me, I have a network of over 3,000 folks on my LinkedIn, and many of them are in my industry. I have about 1,900 freelancers in a community I started on Facebook. And so when I go to find talent, it's really easy for me to pull because I know sort of what people are doing. And so I just want to kind of reiterate that point. It's much easier to find people if you know people. So asking employees for referrals, talking to people in your industry, those things might also be helpful. Difficult managers. Yes, definitely. So Val is talking about capable personal frontline managers, and management is a huge reason why people disengage and why people leave. There's that saying, people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And it's quite true, especially with the millennial and Gen Z generation. They're really looking for somebody who has a two-way style, who's not super authoritative, who respects them, who, is supporting their career growth, who is positive, who's a true leader. Those are great questions, Tom. So are there other things that will draw people to a hiring ad, such as images? Yes. I don't know if I hit that nail on the head enough, but you can be creative in your hiring ads. I would definitely say images. If you go on Canva, I don't know how many of you use Canva, but there's a whole bunch of little hiring image templates that you can very easily modify to be consistent with your branding. And what's also nice is they have some that have animations, and so they play as GIFs, right? I don't know, do we know what GIFs are, right? Little moving images, a little different from a video. And you can post those up and they will get people's attention in their streams. So I emphasize that you should be posting to social media. If that wasn't clear, you absolutely should. And you just want to think about what kind of social media the people you are most interested in working with visit. So I'm going to go back. Let me see if I can find that particular slide.
And what's that, Nicole? I think Facebook actually has a jobs posting.
It does.
Opportunity on there, so you can create jobs on Facebook. I don't know what the range is or whether people use that and look for jobs, but you don't have to just put it on your Facebook page or your company Facebook page. You can promote it within the jobs board on Facebook, which might be helpful because they may target people then.
Yes, definitely. Facebook does that, and LinkedIn. Obviously, if you have a business page, you can post it there and share it widely. What I would say is just to think about the audience again. If you're trying to hire high schoolers and college students, they're probably not looking in LinkedIn. They honestly might not even be looking on Facebook because the Gen Z folks are trending off of Facebook and onto TikTok. Now, I am not really hiring many students in that age bracket, and I don't know TikTok well, but if I was going to, you can bet I would get my business on TikTok. They actually have like TikTok resumes now. So remember, going back, that 91% of Gen Z are looking at the technology their employer offers. So if you can make it splashy and fun, they're going to think, hey, this is an innovative place to work. And so that is attractive for other reasons other than just getting the message out, right? It's like the medium is the message.
Also, what about posting at places like local colleges and things like that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Local colleges have job boards, etc., right?
Yes, definitely. I think that's on this list of where to share. Local colleges do have job boards. They sometimes, if I know I have a really specific need, I've gone to like graduate program chairs and said, hey, can you share this with your team? So you can, if you have a specific industry or a specific major you think it might appeal to, you can try the professors and get a more direct line rather than just on their boards. If you have a specific job association, for talent development, we have the Association of Talent Development, and they have a job board. And so people in my field will often go there to look for jobs. I'm sure there's one in whatever industry you're looking for, hospitality, if you want cybersecurity, they've all got some kind of trade association where they will have job listings. Same thing with the high schools. But I will say, if you're looking for like, students, those community Facebook groups are wonderful places to share, because the moms are there, the dads are there, and they'll tell their kids.
Do you think, Nicole, like that less is in terms of the advertising and the imagery on, if you're talking about Canva, so less is more, right? Attract somebody with a creative, draw them in to come and have a conversation with you, or to reach out to you, by phone or by email or whatever, so that then you can have the conversation with them, as opposed to you said earlier, don't, be careful with your job descriptions, but when you're talking about social media postings, etc., sort of go for the less is more.
Yes, just a visual design basics, white space is it's a trendy look, but also white space sort of helps people to register what's on those text ads. So if you put too much content, people just sort of get overwhelmed by the look. The better thing to do, I've done, is to have Canva's great because it's already visually designed for you. So if graphic design is not your skill, it's a good place to look. But you can post something like a link to a job description and have more, at that link. What I've actually done that's worked really well is created a GIF with Canva, and I used bit.ly, bit.ly, which is a link shortening service, to link to a form that I created with, I use ClickUp as my project management tool, but you can also do it with Google Forms. And then people basically just submitted really simple stuff. They told me what their name was, what their email was, why they thought they were a good fit for the role, and they posted their resume, and that was it. I didn't use a fancy applicant tracking system. And then I was able to easily scan through the resumes, move over who's not a fit, and that was it. And so that's one really easy solution. And again, it's cost effective, right? Canva is not very expensive. Bitly is free. Google Forms is free. If you're using a Google Google Suite already, it's a great option. For me, I pay a small fee for ClickUp every year. It's really easy. And I think that people, it kind of works like a funnel, right? The people who are interested and think they'll be a great fit, they keep moving along. Whereas the people who are like, this is not for me, or I'm not really interested in what you have to say up front, they sort of opt out early on.
Do you ever come across people that may offer like a referral bonus? So if an employee brings on somebody and they're successful, then they'll get a bonus for that. If that person stays X number of days or something like that. Is that,
yes,
is that a good method to?
I would say it's a mixed bag, right? So if you've already got this great work culture, usually you don't need to sort of bribe employees with money to get people to come in. If you found that you're having a hard time, the extra incentive might help. I worked with an airline that did that, and people were excited when they got the bonus. But most people, if you have a toxic, hopefully nobody has this, but if you have a toxic work culture, people aren't going to recommend you to their people, no matter how much money you give them. So the employer referral bonus can be a great way to thank people and make them feel good internally if they're already willing to do that. But I think it's more important that you advertise that these jobs are open to your employees and encourage them to tell the people they know, to get people on board that they want to be working with, than it is to necessarily incentivize them with money. But again, no harm, right? Like totally, it's feel good. Nobody feels bad when they get a little extra money in their pocket. It's just, it's not enough alone to drive those attractive hiring potentials.
Got it. And so if you have a job that's not necessarily the most desirable job, right? It's, more manual labor, less skilled. How do you sort of encourage people for things like that? If it's not how would you dress that up? I mean, if the work environment is fun, if the pay is good, but it's just not a really desirable job, how do you dress that up into something desirable?
I would think about, well, what can you offer that person, right? So a lot of the people who are in manual trades, they enjoy working with their hands, they enjoy having social interaction. They're the people who don't necessarily want to be sitting on a computer 24 hours a day. So those are the things that you can leverage, right? You can talk about what great leadership you have. You can talk about how you reward employees for a day's work. You can talk about the fact that you have a safe workplace, perhaps. You can talk about the kinds of jobs they're going to be doing, even if the work itself isn't exciting. Maybe if you're a carpenter, maybe somebody gets really excited about working on high-rise buildings, whereas another person gets really excited about doing interior design. Maybe the person you want to hire is, excited about the opportunity to sort of zone out and work independently. I think you have to think about what you want in that employee and think about how you're going to get that message across to them. And then sometimes it's just going to be, right, money really is the incentive. If all else fails, you have to pay them the competitive rate that will get them to not go do that manual labor for somebody else.
Okay, that's good. That's helpful. So I think it's 11:53. I think if there's any other questions, perhaps we can post them now. If not, and whilst we're just waiting to see, I'll just do my little sort of quick closing summary. So as I said at the beginning, this is a webinar hosted by SCORE Monmouth. SCORE Monmouth is a 100% volunteer organization, and we help mentor small businesses in Monmouth County. If you are looking for someone to help mentor you through your business journey, or if you're looking to become a mentor and you think you might have something to add to people and become a mentor and have something to add to people who may need help, also, we're always looking for mentors and volunteers as well. My name is Claire. I am one of the volunteers with SCORE Monmouth, and so is Nicole. So you can find out a lot more about us on our website at monmouth.score.org. Or you can check us out on our Facebook page. So that's my little sort of closing spiel there. One other thing to add is, as I said, this will be available on our YouTube channel within a few days from today. So if there's anything you want to go back to and look at, feel free to do so. Nicole, did you have anything else you wanted to add in to close off?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess I just want to emphasize over and over and over again, regardless of whether you are doing the manual labor job, regardless of whether you're trying to attract the Gen Zers, the really experienced folks, I think in this environment, especially after the pandemic, it's just so important to think about your workplace culture and environment, and whether you can offer people a safe and happy and healthy workplace. That is astoundingly the most important thing to people right now, or I should say resoundingly, not astoundingly. I don't think it's that surprising, but it's really the thing you can sort of hang your hat on, even as a small business, because like I said, even if you can't compete with those like Netflix wages, you can always create a culture where people feel valued, and that is attractive.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Nicole. So with that being said, I think we'll say thank you very much to everyone for joining, and we will see you on the next webinar. Thanks a lot.
Bye.